Hey, everybody.
Hey!
This is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
What's up? I'm Victoria.
And you're watching
Hidden
episode
Gems.
73 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. And we're reviewing today episode 773.
Was that planned, Devin?
No. Which is?
Hidden Gems. And
Yes.
Run-of-the-Mill Miracle.
And Run-of-the-Mill Miracle. Yes. Alright, so Hidden Gems, written by Marshall Younger. It feels like we haven't heard from him in a while. Could be wrong. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So in this episode, Olivia just like strides into it and she's like, I know everything because I'm a genius. And Wit's like, no you ain't, girl, no you ain't. She's like, you want to bet? And he's like, betting is bad, but okay. And so then
There's nothing in the Bible against gambling, guys. It's just against having a love of money.
So she goes into the imagination station 3 times, and the first couple times she bets against
the ghost
Wit.
of Christmas past.
Yeah. And he tells her that she don't know everything, and then she finds out it was Christmas still all along. So she bets against Wit that she knows every story in the Bible. He proves her wrong by sending her into the imagination station. She loses the opportunity to get 2 chocolate sundaes, and then she like cries in the corner, and Wit's like, I told you, girl! Oh! And then it ends.
I'm curious, Victoria, did you know these 3 Bible stories?
I knew the... Oh, which one? I knew the second one?
Balaam?
Yeah, I knew the Balaam one because our mom always told us about that one growing up. We'll get into that. No, because like in the original version she read when she was little.
Yes,
she would always tell us the story because
and then his ass spoke to him.
Yeah, it didn't use donkeys. So then when she first read as a kid,
James,
she was like killing herself laughing, and she told us that a bunch of times as a kid. So like when it started playing, I'm like, hey, it's a donkey story. And like I was in the same room as Mom. I'm like, Mom, they're doing the donkey story that you like on Odyssey. We were in the church at the time, and I was like shouting it to her. Yeah, we were like the only ones though.
And Josiah?
Josiah has been in Odyssey before.
That's true.
So I knew who he was, but I didn't know the story that they were doing completely. Because he was in one of those bonus
the shorts
things. Yeah.
The old shorts between episodes.
It talked about him being like the youngest king.
And you think you've got problems?
Yeah. And it said something about like him getting rid of all the gods and stuff. So I was just like, okay, I know who Josiah is, but I'm not 100% sure where they're going with this part of his life.
Yeah.
And the first one I didn't know at all.
The first one, I knew that there were, in all through parts of the Bible, I knew that there were like magicians who would perform tricks, but I didn't know this specific one that they were talking about.
Same.
And I knew Balaam. I knew about Josiah. I forgot that the book of the law was like completely lost to them up until they rediscovered it during the temple restoration. But I remembered that he was a king at 8 years old, and I remember that he turned everyone back to God from Asherah and Baal and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So from the top, I love how Wit scoffs so hard when Olivia is
I
love
how sassy Wit is in this episode. He's like, girl, you think you know everything? Wanna bet?
But
she's
Olivia's
like, yeah.
If you kept reading the Bible for 100 years, and Wit's like, 100 years. Wit, you were born in 1922. You are 93 years old. She was not that far off. Like, that's not far away. He always gets so offended with those comments.
Call him old.
I know.
He's just like, he has to pretend he's offended so people don't find out how old he
actually
is.
Yeah, I'm not older. I'm not sucking the youth out of people through the imagination station to maintain my lively state.
By the way, Olivia, go into the imagination station. We'll see who's old now.
Yeah. After I drained 10 years off the end of your life to add to mine.
No, I didn't get enough. Go in 2 more times.
That's probably he takes years off the end of their life so they don't know.
Yeah.
And then he adds it to his own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is actually a really cool topic to cover right now.
I thought it was really interesting concept for an episode. I really, really like the OAC this season. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's on point.
And it's interesting, especially because of how long we postponed the recording of this episode, because from very recently, I actually have a very cool story about this topic of discovering new lessons in very familiar passages of Scripture. Because very recently, I finished Revelations. I'm like, okay, back to the beginning of the Bible, yay!
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'll do it, even though I'm not doing a Bible in a year kind of thing, I'll do it in the same kind of way they do, where you read like Genesis and Matthew and Proverbs and Psalms at the same time. So I read Matthew chapter 1 and I learned something new. Surprisingly.
What?
Matthew chapter 1, which obviously I've read a lot of times before. In addition, it's also a genealogy chapter. So it's double like, what? Notice something new? So, because of Odyssey, I've always, known that Rehab and Ruth were both very close ancestors of King David. And by extension, they were ancestors of Jesus, which is always this cool thing about, wow, like they were both foreigners. Rahab was a prostitute and Ruth was from another religion. And both of them was like, oh, they were foreigners adopted into the nation of Israel, where normally, people would be less like, they'd be like, xenophobic and stuff.
Wait, who was born first, Rahab or Ruth?
Rahab.
Okay.
We don't want them in our country. But both of them ended up turning to God away from their other things. They were adopted into the nation of Israel and became close ancestors of David, which was super cool. And that's always one thing I point out about genealogies, about how, every verse in the Bible is there for a reason. There's always something to be learned from every verse. God put in there for a reason. Even stuff like the genealogies. There's an example. The genealogies teach us that, and it's like, wow, it's cool. They came from all these different places, but because they turned to God, He blessed them through their bloodlines.
That's in the criteria of a good story. Everything's there for a reason.
Yeah. So, the cool thing I noticed, I knew that Rahab was closely ancestor of David. I knew that Ruth was close ancestor of David. Never before did I notice what the relationship to each other was. I never realized how close it was.
I was just about to ask
you. And
that
is that Rahab is the mother of Boaz.
What?
Yep.
What?
Boaz, who married Ruth, his mother was Rahab, the
What?
spy from Jericho.
That's so cool.
And
Boaz, your family's secret agents are so cool.
What that made me realize is when Ruth came into Israel and everyone hated her, she's like, oh, she's the Moabite. She still worships Shamash. We can't. Yeah. We don't want to let her in. There was one person in Israel who showed her kindness, who let her glean in his fields, who was like, I don't care if you're from another country,
and
used to be
might
from
be
another
why?
religion. I'm going to accept you. I'm going to take you in. It must be really hard for you to come into this country like this. Boaz was like that because his mother went through the exact same thing.
Devin, Boaz is even more of a cinnamon rolling Disney prince.
He was raised by an immigrant who had gone through the exact same things that Ruth did, and that's why his heart was so soft towards her when everyone else stuck up their nose.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
It all makes sense
I'm gonna
now,
tell
right?
Gabe about that when she comes home
cool?
in a couple days.
Isn't that cool? It all makes sense now.
Oh my gosh.
It also means that Ruth won like the mother-in-law jackpot across all time, because her first mother-in-law was Naomi and her second mother-in-law was Rahab.
So awesome. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
And I never noticed.
All the people watching are be like, we already know this. Shut up.
Well, it's funny because when I met with James in Vancouver a couple weeks ago, I was telling him about that, and he never knew that before. And he thought that was crazy.
James is our pastor.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is wild because it's Matthew chapter 1. It's the first chapter of the New Testament. And it's like, everyone's read it a gazillion times.
That's so cool.
And it's a genealogy, so you're like, oh, there's not really a lot you can get out of there. And I was like, if that doesn't go to show that no matter how many times you've read something, there's still new stuff to discover, I don't know what does. So that happened to me recently, and so the fact that this is what this episode was about, I was like, cool, I'm jazzed on this. And if we'd reviewed this back when we were supposed to, I wouldn't have had that story to tell.
It's a good story.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I just want to praise the OAC for a sec, because Every single time I underestimate them, I'm just like, oh, whatever, this episode sounds like it's not going to be that great. It just loves proving me wrong, and I really enjoy it proving me wrong because there's so many good episodes, like Walter and the Flying Bus. It might be like the Mona Lisa for all we know, even though it has a dumb title.
Walter's Flying Bus.
Yeah, that. Like, and first we have, like, Drake the Cosmic Copper. And then we have, like, 30 J's Hath September, which didn't seem like it was going to be that good at the beginning of the episode. And then we have this. And if you go back to our predictions episode.
That was a deep
Follow
thing to dig
Me.
through.
That was such a good episode.
Speaking of hidden gems, you have to listen to a lot to understand.
Yeah.
Get all the meaning out of it each time.
Yeah. You have to listen to that like 60 times. I still don't completely understand everything about it.
Well, I think that's just because we really didn't know a lot about the apostles.
Quick
in part.
Question. I asked you this last night. You didn't answer. Who plays What's-His-Face?
Chad Reiser is older Josiah, who is Monty and a bunch of other stuff.
I knew. I recognized him from... Okay, I thought he was Dwayne or Barrett. I was like, he's someone I know. I'm just not sure who.
He was Chad Reiser.
That is cool that he got to come back for that.
Well, I mean, he's been back for... He's played lots of characters. It's just that Monty's his biggest one. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, he was Digger Dig Willow, right? And then he played John Mark in Revisited. Yeah, we talked about this. It was cool, because it's like, he came back as John Mark in Imagination
He's like,
Station
I'm my
Revisited.
own best friend. How sad is that?
That's the exact same joke you made in the review.
Darn it. I don't remember these. I don't rewatch them.
It's funny. It's like when Gavin was talking about on the Rooster Teeth podcast. It's like, it's weird because you can go back like 7 years and watch a podcast. And I make, it's like someone says something and I make a joke. And then it's like old me makes the same joke. And it's like, wow, I made the same joke. Or even worse, I'll make a joke and old me will make a funnier joke. It's like, I'm less funny now than I used to be. It works.
No, every single time I do rewatch an episode, I always make a joke at the exact same time that I make it. Or I pull a Gavin, I make a funnier joke in the past, although it bothers me even more when I watch something again, or I remember something I couldn't remember back then, or I make a funnier joke then, and I'm like, I didn't get to record it.
Yeah, that'd be annoying, but it does happen to me a lot while I'm editing. Like, I'll be like, editing and you'll say something and I'll be like blah, 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 and then me in the video is like blah, 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 and I'm like
and you're like yeah. No, the worst part is when I'm like not paying attention while I'm like re-listening to one and I'm just like, wow, me and that person share a really similar sense of humor. And then I look, I'm like, oh yeah, it's me.
Back to the episode.
Anyway, like I was saying before, in the predictions episode we were like, this is probably about like hidden qualities in people or something like we've already seen
Trying
like
Out Loud,
60
I think
times.
is what it made me think of.
Yeah, and I was like, it's just gonna be rehashing of this, and it's just like it is the exact opposite of rehashing stuff. The entire point of this episode is not to rehash stuff, and I love this episode so much because I got to hear more Bible stories I've never heard before. Because whenever you're like, Odyssey's gonna do a Bible story, like there's a 85% chance you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I've heard this story before, I can like quote it, whatever. The entire point of this episode was like, you're wrong! You don't know everything! You're dumb! Let us prove you wrong! Sundays for you!
It's also cool because getting new stories also moves us even closer to be able to stitch the entire Bible together solely using Odyssey.
Can you imagine if someone like didn't read the Bible, but they listened to the Odyssey version? They're like, who are like these Jimmy and Lucy and Olivia? Why are they in so many different parts? And why is it so inconsistent?
Like, it's weird. I didn't think that Lucy was a Hebrew name back then. But no, I mean, it's interesting because...
And they're like, I'm from Odyssey. It's like, oh, you're Greek.
we can put a very significant portion of the Bible, excluding like books of prophecy and genealogy and stuff like that. We can put a very significant portion of the Bible together.
We can even do the genealogy from that one time Robin read it.
Yeah.
It's like from this person to this person.
I mean, and it's in the guide, like putting it together in order of books, like chronologically. And they do it for history too, for like world history as well. But yeah, it's cool. So when Whit kind of laid down what the idea of this episode was, there were kind of two different ways I thought this episode could happen. There was one was the way it happened, and the other was the way that I thought it It would have been harder to do, but I think it would have been more interesting, and it would have tied into the actual theme better of the episode. I figured what would probably happen was Wit would just kind of pick random Bible stories and hope Olivia didn't know them, and that's what happened. But I mean, the whole point of the episode wasn't because the point of the episode was even if you've read the whole Bible and you've read every story, there's still new stuff to rediscover going through it a second time, which kind of doesn't line up with there's these stories Olivia's never read before. What I was hoping for personally, but I think it would have been harder, was something like what happened with me and Matthew, which would actually be hidden gems that you need to go through them again to find them. So I was hoping that Wit would send Olivia to a really well-known Bible story, like Noah's Ark or something that she knows really well. And she's like, come on, Mr. Whitaker, I know this story. She goes through it. She's like, I already knew that story. And then he sends her in again, exact same story, but it kind of emphasizes different stuff and shows her a new lesson that she never learned before in an old story. She's like, oh. And then he sends her in again, same adventure for a third time, and she is emphasized in a different way, different characters in some, different perspective, and I learned another new thing. And it goes to show that even when you have read something a whole bunch of times, going through it from a different angle of study, different perspective, can still reveal new hidden gems instead of the plain gems of just reading a story that you haven't read before. Personally, I think that would have been better, but I think it would have been harder to pull off.
Yeah, I feel
it would have been really cool though if it had been executed well.
That would be cool, but I feel like this was more meant for people who have read the Bible. Like, you didn't know the first story that they went over.
I didn't remember it. That's true. And I have read the whole Bible.
Yeah. And, like, I have a feeling that if they did do a familiar story, even if they did do, like, different takes on it, lots of people would still be like, oh, yeah, I knew all of these. But choosing, like, really, really obscure stories...
I don't think Balaam was that obscure, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think it's more because they wanted, like, a fantastic miracle. Which, if they wanted to do that, I would have gone with the time that the guy who was a Peter or something like that got teleported 78 miles during a baptism.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I believe it's in Acts. I won't tell the whole story.
I haven't read the Bible before, all the way through, so...
I've never read the Bible.
The only book I've read is the book of Ruth.
That's the only one you've read all the way through?
Yes. Shut up.
Well, let this episode...
Is my favorite
Let this
story.
Episode be a listen to you, Victoria.
Boaz is a Disney prince. Like, I love him.
Let this episode be a lesson. Read your Bible. Baptizes a guy out in the middle... They're in a lake in the middle of nowhere, and the guy, like, goes under the water, and he comes up, and Peter's gone. He was swept up in the spirit in an instant to a town which was 78 miles away. Teleported, like... And I mean, it's cool, because you hear it, and it's like, well, that's a crazy miracle, I've never heard of it, but it's like, God is in control of all time and space, obviously he can, just as easily as he can do anything else.
New town he was in? That would be
Well,
cool.
I think it was just the closest town, and I'm sure that he did.
Okay.
It was,
He was like, hey guys, I'm a superhero, I just got teleported.
He was walking along the path, the town, in the middle of nowhere, and this guy, he was a eunuch from Ethiopia, I think, and he was reading out loud from the book of Isaiah to himself in the carriage as he passed. He was reading this prophecy that was about Jesus, and the guy stops him, he's like, excuse me, do you know what that prophecy's about? And he's like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, let me tell you about Jesus. And he did, and he baptized him right there, and he went the guy down, and the guy came up, and he was gone.
The guy, or...
No, the eunuch was still there, but Peter, whoever
the eunuch's
it was,
just like,
was gone.
where did you go? I have more questions. And Peter's like, see you, sucker. And then he just leaves.
And I've heard a lot, I mean, I'd take them with more grains of salt, but I have heard a fair number of modern stories of people who have been similarly teleported, sometimes to the other side of the world, under, missionaries and other things like that. And I mean, take them with more of a grain of salt, but quite a few stories have popped up like that I've heard, and sometimes with, not very many degrees of separation from the people they happen to. So, back to the episode, because we're taking a long time to get...
We're talking about hidden gems, Devin, it's on topic.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah, I figured that probably what's going to happen is Wit's just going to pick random stories, hope that she doesn't know them. I was surprised that he did that right off the bat. I thought there was going to be a couple that she knew at first, and then it would get harder and harder. You know, it's funny because given what we know about the Imagination Station, it should be perfectly probable that Wit could use the brainwave to radio wave upgrade to upload her memories of Bible stories, scan through them, and figure out exactly what stories she doesn't know, which would kind of be cheating. Also, kind of seems a little invasive. He'd probably
Yeah.
need waivers signed from her parents to upload her brain.
Like, that's ever stopped him before. But, like, going into the episode, once I did, like, find out the premise and she was about to go in, I was still really cocky about it. Like, I was all like, I know what these stories are. Bring them on, Wait, give me a Sunday.
Me too.
And then, like, the first one, I'm just like, who are you?
Same. I was like, I don't want to be super cocky because we're probably going to be obscure, but I have a feeling I'll probably.
I was really overconfident. I was like, I got this.
Miss, I've never read the Bible.
No, I was still like, I've never read the Bible, but I think I got it.
Well, pride goeth before destruction.
I did know
Victoria.
the second one, and I did know Josiah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have to say,
I got like, I don't know, a quarter. I got like 3/8 to, 3/8
of Josiah's
of the entire episode. I already knew. Yeah. So, suckers.
Yo, I'm in the G house.
No texting while
sorry.
you're on the Oddcast.
Yo, I'm in.
I'm gonna start reading all your points.
Castlegar. I really love the new Imagination Station sound still. Oh, so good. It was kind of weird how it transported her into a baptism zone. Like, she went through a door and suddenly just, like...
And then it'd be funny if it was, like, they did have another story and they just never said it was the one with Peter. And then she's just like, hey, who baptized me? Oh, well, and then she walks away. She never realizes it.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, hey, I see what you did there.
So, it's funny, I thought we were going to go with the Simeon story through the whole time, but I was like, okay, guess we're going to go to a couple different stories, but they will probably...
Know what happened. There was, like, no
Well, that's probably
closure.
That's probably all that's mentioned in the Bible.
Probably. I was wondering if they just, like, took a guy...
It's obviously not a long story.
I was wondering if they, like, made up that story, kind of. Like, even though it was, like, hidden gems,
Simeon's,
I was wondering, like, if they mentioned a name Simeon at one point, and then they just kind of, like, dabbled with it, and then it just...
I think it's one of those stories that's literally a paragraph, and that's it.
Okay.
Where it's like, Simeon was a magician, and he tried to buy him off, but they were like, heck no, son, and the end.
Heck no, son.
So, I was like, there'll be multiple stories, but I'm sure they will have a common theme to them.
Common theme is you don't know anything.
Yeah.
No Sundays for you.
So, yeah, what I was hoping for was that didn't happen, but... Because I feel like that would tie more strongly to what Whit was saying at the beginning, because he was the guy who was like, I've read the story of Abraham tons of time, Olivia, but I'm still learning new things from it. Like, that would fit better with what he was saying.
Well, I mean, like, I think Whit proved that he knows all the stories. It's just he doesn't know every aspect of all the stories.
Yeah.
So he's just like, Olivia, you don't even know all the stories, so I'm gonna educate you. Get wrecked.
So we come to Balaam, and so I was like, I was guessing Balaam would be here because the episode art had a donkey and an angel in it.
Speaking of the album art, it's a donkey. I'm like, it's a talking donkey.
It does annoy me how all the Bible characters in album art are always white, despite the fact that they're Middle Eastern in real life. I understand that they're usually modeled after the regular Odyssey characters / actors who are portraying them, like Phil Lawler in the case of this angel. But, it really doesn't help with the ever-present issue of kids growing up to think that Jesus and all the other Bible figures were, like, blonde, brown-haired white people.
I've never seen a picture of a blonde Jesus before.
They do exist. They actually exist.
Huh. Every single time someone's new to youth group, James is always like, okay, we're going to tell you about Jesus. He was Middle Eastern, he had brown hair. He looked like Devin and Victoria. Like,
probably is a little darker than we are.
Yeah, but... he always, like, points to us, though, and he's just like...
Well, not to me, because
he always pointed to me, and he's like, he has the same complexion as Victoria! And I'm like, James, leave me alone. And I'm like, I'm flattered, but please stop yelling and pointing.
Did you see the other day, it was in the news, this guy who, like, used archaeological stuff to try and draw an artist's depiction of what Jesus probably would have looked like hair and skin tone wise.
No.
I'll show it to you later. I won't look it up now.
Okay.
It's in the episode.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the description. Sure, why not? So you guys can see too if you haven't.
Future Devin's like, oh
Yeah.
man, Devin, why
I know,
you
that's
gonna
exactly
go-"
what future Devin is thinking right now.
Yeah, future Devin's listening to us right now, and he's like, guys, stop talking.
Anyways,
about me.
I'd like the no animals harmed in the making of this adventure line. Because, wow, it was kind of like, keep on beating the donkey over and over, which I realized is
the
supposed
donkey
to
got back at him. He's like, my hand! And the donkey's like, that's what you get.
Olivia taking props into the adventure now. I was like, this isn't going to turn into some, like, Imagination Station novel thing, is it? Right? Or Isaac the Chivalrous? Yeah. But, no. But, I mean, it's weird, because I'm guessing Whit already programmed the glass of water to join the adventure with her.
I was thinking of Digger or Kelly. Like,
yeah,
like bring the water.
That was
in.
water inside the episode. She brought it from the outside, and it just serves to add ever more questions to things like if Olivia.
Do you think there's like a cup laying around in some room, and like Connie's like, "It's like, can you clean?" And she's like, "How many things did you put in there?"
Well,
and then she like walks through, and
that's
she's
my
like,
question.
"There's all this junk in here, and I gotta clean it up."
Because
Stop.
if Olivia gives the cup to Josiah, for example, will it end up sitting in the corner of a room in the Imagination Station? Will she just like drop it on the floor in front of her when she hands it to him, and it'll just shatter and splash all over her legs?
Is there a bunch of like junk in the Imagination Station, and like can Connie go in without an imagination going off, or is it like actual treasure hunt throughout the Bible?
Yeah.
And it's like, Connie, you gotta find the cup, and she's like, wait, not again.
It's like the Holy Grail.
I had to go through 6 adventures last time before I found the cup.
It's like Where's Waldo?
And then it was like, it turned out to be one of the cups that was used at the Last Supper. Do you have any idea how hard it was to get it away from
You have
them?
to go through different adventures to try and find this thing in real life. Not like you could go into the Imagination Station while it's turned off, of course.
That sounds like an Indiana Jones movie
I just said the Holy Grail,
I was thinking of the Holy. That
but,
sounds like such an insane movie, though.
Even if, like, Olivia gave it to Josiah, whereas in reality, in her, like, you know, like, semi-dream, like, sleepwalking state, she, like went down and put it on the floor. If the next kid goes into the Imagination Station, are they going to kick it over if they hit it?
Like, they're going to, like, there's all this stuff laying on the ground, and, like, a kid trips, and it looks like they tripped on the air, and they're like, I'm such a klutz.
Yeah, why do my legs suddenly feel wet?
Or if there's, like, multiple people in there, and Olivia just, like, walks over, and she just, like, gives it to Josiah, but it just turns into her, like, dropping it on another kid's head. He wakes up, he's like, what's going on?
Yeah. Or the other possibility...
Or she drops down all the circuitry, and, like...
I don't think there's open circuits inside the rooms. The other possibility is that she keeps on holding on to it in real life, even though she thinks she gave it to Josiah, so she'll walk out, and she'll be like... Whoa, I'm holding this. I didn't think I still had that.
And she's just like, what's up with my hand?
Yeah, so it raises a lot of questions. So, yeah, I knew about Josiah, but I'd forgotten that the law had been entirely lost during that period of history, which is crazy to think that the Jews didn't have, like, Mosaic law at all during that time.
That's interesting.
They probably still had the Ten Commandments, but they might not have. I mean, he said, worship no other idols before me, so they might not even have had the Ten Commandments then.
All these kids bringing all this junk in the Imagination Station, just throwing at each other, and they're not even aware.
Yeah. Okay, so for the video documentary, now, we start off in the Focus on the Family bookstore with just kind of this realization of how many different types of Bibles there are. Then we hear from Phil Vischer, the creator of VeggieTales.
He also plays Bob and Archibald and like 16 other characters.
Yeah, he does a lot of voices. So he brings a bunch of his puppets from Jelly Telly, which is his network. They talk about the general composition of the Bible, what it's about. And it's interesting because it made me contextualize the time frame of the writing of the Bible in a way I never had before, which is the Bible was probably written over about 1,600 years, which is the same time span as from the fall of the Roman Empire until today, almost.
I don't know, I always assumed it took like a couple hundred.
Like, because, I mean, Moses wrote the first couple books of the
sense.
Bible in, like...
He wrote, like, Genesis.
Yeah, probably. Most likely he wrote the Pentateuch, all 5 of them. And then, you know, the last books of the Bible were written around, like, 80 or so AD. So it took about 1,600 years to write the Bible. And think about, like, because I think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, back then, because it's all this time span of history, it's a long time. The fall of the Roman Empire until now, that's how long that is that the Bible was written across.
It's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
So then Bob Bob talks to a guy from Biblica, which is an organization that works with creating and spreading biblical translations. And the guy talks about, he tells the story of getting his first Bible and the importance of getting a translation you can actually understand that has features to engage you with the word. Because he talked about like how he got a King James Bible and he's super excited, and then he looked at it and he's like, I have no idea what this says. He's like, I looked at the pictures. And like,
I really love Phil Vischer. I have a lot of respect for him, along with, can't remember his name, the guy who plays Larry. Can I just say, I'm still in shock about the whole Boaz thing. Like,
I know.
What?
I read it and I was just reeling.
Ruth.
Reeling in bed for like
I
half an hour.
Say like Rahab was Ruth's grandma or something like that, and I was thinking like, then how did she go from one place to the other place? No. I thought you were going to say they were related on her side. I didn't think about Boaz. Like,
yeah,
I didn't.
She's literally.
I didn't factor him into it.
It was like whomever was the father of Boaz, along with his mother Rahab. Boaz married Ruth.
They say it in the Odyssey episode, I think,
Boaz,
probably.
I don't think so. I just mean that's what it said Matthew, and then it's like Boaz married Ruth, and they had Obed had Jesse, and Jesse begat David, king of Israel.
Boaz before?
No, because she fled by herself.
Oh, I thought she fled with her, or it was just everyone in the building.
I think it was just her.
Oh, okay. And then she met, like, some nice guy.
Well, I mean, because
like, we're going to have the best kid ever.
You have to remember, because David was from the line of Judah, right?
Yes.
Which means that Rahab's husband was from the line of Judah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Okay, so the web quest actually starts off at the very beginning with making reference to the line about Wit's age and how the fandom has tried to pin it down for so many years. Okay.
And we're like, we're on to you!
I want you to participate in this. So there was a little thing with a bunch of, like, Bible headlines, and you have to pick out the fake 2 out of the 10 that they gave, and then they didn't even tell you at the bottom, like, these are the 2 fake ones. They gave you the passages, and you had to look up the passages of the 8 to figure out what the 2 were that were false.
Did you look them up?
I did.
So you know what they are?
Yes.
Okay.
I wrote it.
I get to play a game, guys!
I put asterisks beside the fake ones, but when I realized you were watching on the same screen as me, I erased them before we started.
Good idea. I thought you were going to say they're still there. No. And I was like, well, I know it's not those ones.
It was really cleverly done, and they surprisingly included one of my favorite violent Bible stories in it. Didn't think they would, and it was actually fairly difficult. Oh my gosh!
Tell me it's the one with the bears.
I was.
Please tell. That's like my favorite.
Well, you'll see. I'll read them out, and you'll try and pick out the 2. I did not. I picked out one of the fake ones. Did not pick out the other fake one. I got it wrong. So it was hard. Okay.
Devin's favorite Bible story.
I will read you.
Is also like my favorite, and it's like the one. Who was it? It was the Apostle Paul.
No, it was Old Testament. It was like Ezekiel, I think.
It was Ezekiel.
Or Elijah. It was Elijah.
It was Elijah. So he like walks into this town, and then these dumb teenage punks are like throwing rocks at him or whatever, and they're like, "Hey man, you're really old and ugly," and he's you're bald, and they start making fun of him because he was bald, and then he's just like, "God smite these punks, these teenage punks," and then a bear just comes out of the woods and it like mauls them.
Well, not even woods. There probably weren't woods. This is Israel. Okay. A bear just came out of like the desert. Mauled them to death and then went back into the desert.
It's so awful.
The Old Testament is brutal.
I shouldn't laugh, but
so I'll read the headlines.
Okay.
Bones come to life.
Okay, I know.
Yay or nay?
Can I read all of them first?
I'll read them out to you.
Okay, this one I will say after you what I'm leaning towards. Ben told me a story once about all these bones coming to life, and they were the army for God. So
bones come to life. Temple built from sand.
I'm not
Teen
sure.
snoozes during sermon, falls to death. Dad celebrates 969th birthday.
Okay, that one's probably true.
The day the sun stood still. Kids mock bald man, get mauled by bears.
Yeah!
Angler finds coin in fish's mouth. When it says angler, it just means like a fisherman.
Oh, okay.
Angler finds coin in fish's mouth. Axe head floats. Snake speaks up. And flowers heal blind girl.
So is that all of them?
That is the 10.
Okay.
2 of those are false.
So can we like bold all of them?
Sure.
And then we unbold the ones.
Okay, what is true, Victoria?
Okay. Bones come to life. I think that one's true.
Okay.
the bear one. Well, we already talked. It's a bear.
Yeah.
Snake speaks up.
That's what I was like, surely that must happen at some point. And I looked at it, it's like Genesis 3. I was like,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I didn't think,
it's like
I didn't
it's
think
Satan
it,
in the Garden of Eden.
I didn't think of that.
I can't think of any other points with snakes where
well,
they
there are
talk,
other parts with snakes. I didn't remember
where they talk.
Well, Moses performed miracles with snakes, and there's other snakes.
They didn't talk,
There's
though.
other sneaky stuff in the Bible.
Yeah, but they didn't talk.
Okay, other one.
Okay, Dad celebrates 969th birthday. Wait, was the snake one you thought... Did you think that was fake?
No, I thought it was true.
Okay. Dad celebrates 969th birthday. That one's true.
Yeah, that's Methuselah.
Yeah. Was he the oldest?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there were people older than...
Nope, 31 years short of a millennia.
Ah, he was so
close.
close. Darn it.
Yeah.
Okay, stop moving the mouse around, please.
Sorry.
Which ones are left? Because some of them
Temple
are two
built
lines.
from sand.
Okay.
Teen snoozes falling sermon falls to death.
There are people watching and they're probably like, I know what these are, Victoria. Hurry it
Teen
up.
snoozes during sermon falls to death. Like falls to his death.
Yeah.
The day the sun stood still. Fisherman finds coin in fish's mouth. Axe head floats. Flowers heal blind girl.
Okay, I think the day the sun stood still, I think that one's true. You have very good poker face.
Thank you.
Snoozes during sermon, falls to death. I think that one's true. Part of me wants to say the axe head one is true because it's just so crazy, but I don't know if it is. Flowers. Oh, this is hard. This is really hard. Did you have a lot of trouble with this?
I did. There were some where I was like, that's false, and I started second guessing things.
Flowers heal blind girl.
Because they're worded in weird ways.
I think that one's true. I have 3 left. So, temple built from sand. Angler finds fish and coins.
Coin in
Crap.
fish's mouth.
Angler finds coin in fish's mouth, and axe head floats. All of these sound like they could. Oh, darn it. This is hard. Are these the order that they were?
Yes.
If the angler one and the axe one are right beside each other, so that could be a sign that they're not both fake. I'm gonna go with. Oh, I feel like temple built from sand is true though. I'm gonna go with the coin one is true. How close was I?
Temple built from sand is false. You're correct.
Yes! Okay.
That is not true. The other fake one, an axe head did float.
Oh,
the other fake one is flowers heal blind girl.
Darn it.
I think the axe head was also with Elijah or one of the prophets where they're like, give us a sign.
I
and
was
threw an axe
so
in the water
close.
and
Which was the one you got wrong?
I thought the other fake one. I got temple built from sand right. I thought the other fake one was teen snoozes during sermon, falls to death.
I was thinking that one sounds hilarious, and it's probably
I was like,
true.
Well, I was like, because it said teen stuff, I was like, it feels like a modern thing that they put in there. But no, it was in Acts. The Apostle Paul was preaching on the roof of a house, and there were people sitting there, and there was a teen sitting like on the edge of the roof, and he fell asleep during the sermon, and he fell
I thought it was like he fell asleep in a temple and then just like he was struck by lightning or something like that.
I thought it meant he fell asleep during sermon and then later he fell to his death. No, they were on the roof, and so he fell asleep, he keeled over, fell 3 stories and died, and then Paul prayed for him and he came back to life.
Okay. I think I might have heard that one before, but I'm probably wrong.
I didn't remember it at all.
It sounds slightly
And
familiar.
no temple was built from sand. So those were the two, temple built from sand was false, and flowers heal blind girl was false.
Okay,
But
what's
bones
the...
come to life was Ezekiel.
Yeah, I was right.
In the
That's
desert.
the one about the army.
Yeah, and God raised the armies like, this is my army.
I was going to mention that one before when we were talking about hidden gems, because I didn't know that one until a couple of years ago when Ben told the youth group about it.
Dad celebrates... Well, we sing about it in Days of Elijah.
Yeah, that too.
There's the second verse has a line about it.
Where's the one about the bears in Days of Elijah?
Dad celebrates 969th birthday was Methuselah. Day the sun stood still was the battle with Moses, where he held the staff over his head and the sun didn't move until they won, or until the sun wouldn't move until he put his arms down. So he held it up and he got tired, and then like Aaron and someone else came, Aaron and and Joshua came beside him, and they like held his arms up.
Aaron and Joshua and Moses are like my biblical bro TP.
Um,
Or bro T3.
Angler friends, coin in fish's mouth. That was a Jesus thing where they were asking something about like paying taxes. He's like, go fish and you'll catch a fish and you'll find a coin in its mouth. And snake was the Garden of Eden. And yeah, that was that. So yeah, final thoughts on this episode, Victoria.
I'm impressed at how good I did on that list.
I am too.
Like, yeah. I was so close, though. I was so close.
You were very close, yeah. You got the same as me. You got the sand one right, but you got the other one wrong.
I was just thinking, like, I can't imagine that would be very structurally sound.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way.
And two of my best friends want to become, like, architects, basically. So, yeah.
What if they wrote that, but it was actually a sneaky reference to like the parable of the house built on sand?
See, I was worried it was going to be something like that.
That would have been cheap.
I was really worried,
but it didn't actually happen,
like that,
and it wasn't a temple. So
yeah.
Final thoughts, hidden gems.
This episode's really good, and this episode is really long. We're really far into this. Sorry, guys.
We've gone off topic a couple times. Shout out to the Off Topic podcast, and then I played the game with you.
Yeah, we played a game. Wasn't that fun, everyone?
But you guys, yeah. I hope you're all playing along at home.
Although I don't know how you'd know what the verses were. I guess you went over it, kind of.
So, final thoughts, Victoria.
This episode was really good. I learned some new stuff. That's always nice. I like how it felt very fresh to me, this episode. Usually there's a lot of episodes that, like, tread stuff. We've already treaded. But we've never done a lesson like this before, and we've never had these lessons in Odyssey before, and some of these lessons, like some of these stories I'd never even heard. So I'm going to give it 5 stars because I feel smarter already.
Nice.
I feel educated, even though I was wrong. So plus that game was fun.
Yeah, it was a good thing for the webcast. I was like, nice, this is cool. I liked it.
They should do more like that.
The creative way that they worded the stories.
Yeah, I want to do more like that. Odyssey should make more of those.
Well, maybe you should look at the webquest every once in a while.
Maybe I should. Because I totally have time for that.
Yeah. Well, I was doing until 4 this morning, getting ready for this recording. So, yes, this is a very good episode. Didn't go the way that I wanted, and I feel I didn't line up with the theme that Whit was trying to convey nearly as well, but still very good. I learned some new stuff about scripture, which is always a super big plus.
Oh, Boaz!
It's a good theme, which is relevant. It's a very important theme, and surprisingly, not a theme that we had covered before. So, that's always really exciting, because it's...
I don't think I've ever seen anything do this theme before.
Because it is actually a theme that I talk about.
Yeah.
I've talked about to people multiple times before, and it's interesting, as time goes on, we're obviously harder and harder pressed to find themes that Odyssey hasn't covered before. Because we're nearly 800 episodes in now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different themes.
Was it 773? Something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you proud of me for remembering that?
I am, yeah.
But, yeah.
So, yeah. It was good. It was good. There's some funny lines. And we got to jump around the Bible and look at some cool stories, see some different stuff.
Someone, that's always fun to see.
He did.
We got jokes about Whit's age. That's always something funny to harbor on. What you give it? What you give it, boy?
Say 4.5 out of 5.
Nitpicky. Okay.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like the best thing ever. It wasn't as high as it could be, but it was good.
I had fun.
9 out of 10.
I had fun.
So that's that. What are we talking about next, Victoria?
Run-of-the-Mill miracle. It's about Grady.
Yeah.
Yay,
so we'll turn y'all over to that right now. And we're back now with episode 608. 608. Run-of-the-Mill miracle, written by Katie Bruin.
Who is...
I think this is the only episode she's written.
Oh, okay.
Well, she's not new. This episode
came out... never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
This episode came out almost 9 years ago.
My brain is still OAC mode.
Yeah. Man, almost 9 years ago. Wow.
In this episode, Grady is looking for a miracle because Sam was put in the hospital by a carbon monoxide leak. So he learns a lot about miracles, and Sam's okay in the end. And also their babysitter was put in the hospital, but she got better faster.
Yeah.
And so Grady hears
Bigger
a lot of
body.
stories about miracles, both in the Bible and that happen to the characters in the show.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And we get more about Joanne's past, which is always really interesting.
It is.
Because I feel like she's one of the most interesting pasts for a minor character.
She's been like a nurse, and she's been a missionary. She has the whole thing with Agnes.
And
then
like
the thing
everything with Eugene. And
Yeah.
like every single time you find out something else about her life, you're just like, you're such an interesting character.
She's like,
can you be on the show
she's like
please?
the mysterious one who through everyone's life histories like met them all and was bringing everyone to, she's like the sonic
wise
rainbow
sage who just like put everyone in the place.
She's the
where
sonic
they are.
rainbow of everyone's backstories who brought them
'cause
all
Eugene
together
wouldn't
behind the scenes.
Eugene wouldn't be living without her.
He wouldn't have been born and all that stuff. And wasn't there the thing about how like no, that was Jenny Whittaker who was supposed to, in that deleted scene, Jenny Whittaker introduced Agnes to Tom.
I like to pretend that still happened.
I hope it's still considered canon.
Because then, she's the reason everyone's where they are.
I mean, Joanne wasn't in that story, but yeah, I mean, Joanne's done lots of cool stuff. So, as it may be obvious, this episode was picked by Victoria for the B-side of this review because it also involves a kid taking multiple imagination station adventures with a common theme.
Yeah, I was like, I feel, after I listened to Hidden Gems, Devin hadn't listened to it yet.
And so I asked her to
unplug that.
I unplugged it
okay, never mind.
Because I had to plug this in.
Just making sure. So I was like, I feel like there's an episode that's a lot like this that I would be able to find that would line up with it pretty well.
I asked Victoria to pick an episode that would do that would fit in well with Hidden Gems because I didn't know what it was about.
I was thinking like either this or I think I was leaning towards one of the Truth Chronicle episodes, maybe. Like maybe the first one with Connie because I was thinking like a story that goes across a bunch of different stories.
Yeah, this definitely fits better.
This one takes a bunch of, like, things you might not have known, and it, like, interweaves a thing with it, and, like, learning, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought it worked well.
It did. So it is worth noting, for whomever may care, I don't know, that although this is the second episode in album 48, because, even though it's the second episode, because BTV Redeeming the Season is the first episode, and it actually aired way back in 2000... this episode was actually the premiere for the spring 2007 season.
I thought you were saying this one was really old too, and I was like, what? I knew about BTV, but I didn't know about this one.
No, it was the season premiere, even though it's the second episode in the album, because BTV Redeeming Season wasn't part of this season.
And everyone's like, why did we only get 11 episodes this season?
It's interesting, because there were only 11 episodes that season, which I never realized until that this was the premiere, until the unofficial podcast, rest in peace, the review
Wait, it's over?
The unofficial podcast?
Oh, I thought you said official.
No, the unofficial podcast, because they reviewed this episode and talked about how, like, such a great season premiere. And that's when I was like, So I always remember that in the old think noggin. So this episode is obviously part of Grady's conversion arc, and it was one of the last appearances of Doc Morton. She only appeared in A New Era after this.
R.I.P.
Yeah, but now we have Dr. Lily Graham. So.
She's so awesome.
And she has a first name.
Yeah, and I always feel so bad for her and Dr. Morton because they always have to put up with all this crap that the Whittakers put them through. And it's just like, geez, it's like, I ripped out my own IV and ran all the way here to tell you.
Yeah.
And then they break all the windows on their way in to visit people. They're like Angel from Hatoful, and it's just ridiculous.
So, carbon monoxide poisoning happens to Sam and the babysitter, which is a really nasty one.
What's her name?
Did they give her a name?
I think it's Angela.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carbon monoxide, CO, binds to hemoglobin with 210 times the affinity of oxygen.
I just want to thank this episode because this is how I first found out what carbon monoxide was.
I'm pretty sure same for me.
So, like, one time I heard there was a carbon monoxide leak in the basement of our church during a function.
Yes.
And lots of people in the kitchen had to leave.
Yeah,
and
there's
so,
one of the venting systems got closed or something over the oven.
So I knew to stay away from the kitchen then, and like to see if anyone needed help, like, and stuff like that. And by the time I was in grade 7, I think I finally found out how carbon monoxide poisoning works.
Yes, it competitively
So
binds.
it was interesting.
It competitively binds to almost all of your hemoglobin, pushes out all the you're obviously then you can't transfer any O2 in your blood.
Yep.
And the nasty thing is, like, if someone stops breathing normally, you can give them mouth to mouth. But obviously, because of the nature of carbon monoxide poisoning, you can give them mouth to mouth, but the oxygen's just going to go into their lungs, because for every 1 oxygen bound to hemoglobin, there will be 210 carbon monoxides bound.
And yeah, I was always pretty proud of myself as a kid, because I was like, I know what carbon monoxide poisoning is. And so then, like, I found out how it all works and stuff. I found it really interesting solely because of this episode. And when we watched that really weird French movie, which is actually probably my favorite French movie I've had to watch in LFI, the one with that crazy lady. Yeah. And then she, like, tries to commit suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. When you and I were watching that, and she, like, turned the thing on the stove.
Turned the oven on, but the pilot light was out, yeah.
And then I was just
That's
like...
natural gas, I think.
Oh.
But
well, still same kind of principle. And I was like, Devin, is she doing what I think she's doing? And you're like, yes.
Another rare character who appears in this episode is Mr. Jenkins of Jenkins Market.
Mr. Jenkins!
Yeah, this is the last of 4 appearances that he's ever made, starting way back in album 9 with Cousin Albert.
Him.
And then he also appeared in the Unraveling in album 38 and Switch in album 46. And this is the last time he showed up.
Is he the guy with the fan club? Or who is the one with the fan club that was in Switch?
He is in Switch.
No, but wasn't there like one character and they were like, bring this character back?
I think so. Yeah, yes.
It was him.
Yeah, that's what they were talking. Yeah, in the commentary for Switch, when the writers were like, I mean, we had to bring Mr. Jenkins back because he has such a huge fandom all on his own, and everyone's always like, bring Jenkins back.
Oh, are they being sarcastic?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
I always thought they were serious, and I was like, I want to be part of the Mr. Jenkins fan club.
Oh man, Jenkins.
Oh man, Jenkins. I would be part of his fan club. I like him.
This is one of the few episodes about Grady's growing faith that doesn't involve Wooten at all. And as much as I and everyone else adores the relationship between those two, it's always neat to see how his faith was developed in different ways by different people along that road, including Whit and Joanne. In this
I feel
instance.
like even though there's a lot of like Whit's influence on him, I feel like Grady did a lot of growing just solely by himself in this episode, and also
that's the cool
like
thing is he sought out the Imagination Station adventures on his own.
And you're like you see how far he's come since Tuesdays with Wooten.
Exactly, and he's the one who asked Whit about miracles and praying and stuff like that. Like he's starting to get this like autonomousness about searching for his faith, which is a really big step. Good point. I didn't think about that.
And once again, I will say with utter conviction, I wish we got more Grady after he became a Christian.
Yeah.
Because we only got a 2-parter and we didn't get to see any of Christian Grady, really. Just like we got
father
Carson,
relationship. We did, and we've talked
really
about it.
Cool.
It was very well developed in that episode, the father-son stuff.
But we didn't get like any of Grady demonstrating his Christian attitudes, or I don't know how to put it. Yeah. What's this faith? What's this word mean?
What's that word? Oh, we try it.
What's that word again?
This is what happens if you read your Bible. This is what happens if you read your Bible.
Don't touch me, you jerk.
So I'll be honest. I'm really quite surprised at Whit talking about how he's never seen really like any miracles, like any big miracles.
Like, wait, you liar! Your age is a miracle. How you're not dead is a miracle. How the fact that he didn't die all those times when he fought in the war are miracles.
Like, I haven't seen anyone walking on water, but I've certainly seen a lot of amazing healings in my time. So I'm really surprised that Whit doesn't have any stories in his long and illustrious life that could at least top Joanne's.
Yeah.
I always find it funny because as a Christian, I find that I take miraculous healings for granted a lot. That, like, I'm hard-pressed to remember a lot of them when I'm asked about them, because when I hear about it, I was like, yeah, praise God, but it's not like, I need to remember this, because it's a miracle to
keep track of
point them out to people, because it's like they're so commonplace that it's like, oh yeah, it's a miracle. Someone just got healed against all the, knowledge of science and biology happens,
No,
all
that's
the
actually
time.
how I first found out that not everyone was Christian. It was really sad. It was heartbreaking for me. I really loved my 5th grade teacher. So then one day after like a really big rally conference thing at church where a bunch of people got healed, I was telling her about it and she's like, "Oh, that's not true." And I was just like so heartbroken. And I was just like, "Oh." And that was the moment where I realized not everyone is the same. And yeah. But one
So you
time,
told her about things that did happen. It's just like,
yeah,
that's
I was
not
just like, there were these people in my church, and
it's
they
not
were
true that you
blind,
saw
and
that.
now they're not, and they couldn't walk, and now they can, and like all these other stuff. And she's just like, no, no, honey, science can't do that. Go play recess. And I'm like, I don't even know you anymore. And then I went outside, but yeah, like a little while ago, because of complications and lots of stuff I won't get into, I had to quit my job. And so then that day I was like, I need to, because I had 2 jobs at the time, like I need more work at my other job. And so like in under half an hour since I quit my first job, I got 3 times more work at my
because you were
second job.
teaching
because
piano.
I teach piano. I got 3 students in like under half an hour that I quit my next job. And like I would not have been able to do that on my own. Like I was praying about the whole thing.
That's the power of prayer.
Yeah. And one time my friends and I went to a conference and there was a healer there. And he was, because you know how lots of people have like their legs aren't the same length?
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually like praying for everyone and their legs were growing. And so like Gabe and I were in the
probably
lineup.
not that. I don't think the legs are that much shorter. But
no, the legs were actually like growing like that. Like that's what it looked like. So like he would sit there and then he would like pull on one of your legs and he would like line them up and you would see which one was longer. And so like he grabbed my leg and then he went like he pulled on it and I saw my leg actually go like woo, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then he went like this and then like my spine
were your legs
was completely
not
straight. No, my legs weren't even.
Really?
And Uncle Steven told us that like a year before.
Oh.
And that's like my back is like super out of alignment. And then he went like this. And then my spine was like completely straight. And I had such trouble walking for like the next couple weeks because I was just like so not used to all of this. And like Gabe and I, like our legs were hurting so bad because like they were new lengths and like our bodies had to adjust. This happened like 3 years ago. And it was like insane.
I never knew about that.
Yeah, and it was at youth group and it was so cool. And Jonathan and Riker, 2 of my other best friends, they like saw me, they were like staring at me because they saw my leg grow too. And then they're just like, I heard sound effects in my head like someone, a kazoo or like a blow whistle. I was like, woo! I was going like that and I'm like, please don't say that. And then the next day I saw another one of my best friends, Siobhan, and I was like, my leg grew yesterday. And she was like, okay, I don't understand. I'm like, no, my leg, it grew like this. And someone prayed for it and she was like, and yeah, she didn't believe me, but
one of the miracles of healing I often hold on to, it was probably around 7 years ago. I don't think it was quite 10 years ago, but somewhere in that area. Our grandpa's heart grew a double bypass, which was quite cool. He was walking with my grandma one day. His heart began to hurt, so we went to the doctor. The doctor said that plaque in his arteries had just closed off 2 of his major arteries, but he lived because in advance of the closure, before it closed up, his heart decided to grow not 1, but 2 bypasses around the blockages before they closed up, and that saved him.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, and they showed at church, like they even put his like his cardiograms and the X-rays up on the overhead and everything.
And one more.
That's pretty medically impossible.
Yeah, one more. Our cousin, when we were younger, at her, what are they called? Right after the wedding.
Baby shower.
No, the party after the wedding.
The reception.
Yeah, at the reception, there was this guy who had like a heart attack.
Oh, I remember that.
In the middle of the wedding. I can't really remember it, so
Whose
I'll let
wedding
you tell
was
it.
that?
Tiffany's.
Okay. He died. And then Pastor Dwight prayed for him, and he came back to life.
And then by the time the ambulance had shown up, he was already alive again.
Yeah, and they knew he didn't just pass out or go into a coma.
I thought he had a heart attack.
He did die. he was like medically dead because of like the way that the muscles relaxed and stuff, and his bladder and
His
everything.
head fell on the table.
Like, because if you went into a coma or something like that, I think it was that like the sphincter muscles in the bladder would still hold by subconscious instinct. But the fact that they released and other stuff released means that he didn't just like go unconscious, like he was dead. But by the time the ambulance arrived, a whole bunch of people had prayed for him, and he was back. And
he was like
alive
looking
again.
around. He's like, "Hey, everybody, why is the police here?" And everyone's just like screaming. And he's like, "Why are you upset? What's wrong?"
So yeah, healing miracles.
Yeah.
So that's why I was surprised that Whit didn't have any stories to tell.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of
like,
odd.
Whit, I'll share my stories with you.
Yeah.
Like, Whit, I'm like 16 times younger than you are, and I have more stories than you.
Apparently. I love the line, I'm like, he's a prophet, why doesn't he know there's no bread? So I think it's good that with all of the talk of miracles, that Whit also explains that even if a miracle doesn't happen in the way that we want, it doesn't mean God isn't working through all things, or that things aren't working out the best. And he's not cessationist about it either. He's not like, well, God doesn't work miracles anymore in the way that he still used to.
Like a miracle might be in progress, and you don't even know.
Like, he still, ties it into the same way that we usually talk about prayer. Like, God doesn't answer prayer. Sometimes it's a no, it's always for the best, or sometimes it's wait. But it's sweet that, because Grady brought up Jenny to Whit, that he's able to talk about how her death led to Whit's end and all that stuff, and so how it did, work together for the good, just like I've talked about Karen often, and the same way how her death helped to spur Connie's conversion and everything that came after that. I really also love the form that Joanne's miracle, that the miracle with Mrs. McKay took in this episode, like with the purse and the wallet and stuff, and it was actually that it turned out there was actually a miracle that caused them to be saved.
Something
and it
like
wasn't
that
in the way he
happened to me
expected.
once,
and it's like,
and I can't remember what it was. No, something happened like that to Mom once or something. Like she forgot something at church, and then she went back, and then she realized like
the house was on fire.
No, something was on and it like shouldn't have been or something like that. And then she was able to turn it off and do a bunch of other things, and then she came back.
That's good.
And it turned out she didn't actually leave anything there. She just thought she did. I'm like, you pulled a Mrs. McCain! And she's like, what does that mean? And I just want to mention this. This isn't like a miracle, but I thought it was nice. The other day, Devin and I were looking for a store. We were looking for the Salvation Army thrift shop.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about finding your stuff at Ordine's.
No.
It's a miracle.
No. Heck no. No. We went shopping the other day, a couple days ago, and we were trying to find the thrift shop, so we looked for Salvation Army thrift shop in the town that's next to ours because we didn't know where it was, so we looked up on Google Maps. We just looked up Salvation Army, so that led us to the church there. And they needed help bringing stuff in, and the lady said she wouldn't have been able to do it by herself after we helped her carry everything in. So that was nice.
Yeah, way to do your deeds in secret, Victoria.
Yeah. Well,
I know what you mean, though. It's cool that we ended up in the wrong place, but we were able to help.
Yeah, that's my point. Out.
I know. At first, I was like, "Why are you just talking about nice things that we did?" And then I was like, "Oh, I see your point here." Yeah,
it's applicable, Devin.
If we hadn't accidentally ended up at the church, we couldn't have helped him carry in 1 billion boxes of rice.
Still.
Yeah. So
I'm not just saying.
I know.
This,
I understand. I understand.
I'm not a narcissist.
So, we've got one thing from the official guide here for this episode, which is cut scenes.
Cutscenes.
No, cut scenes.
Cutscenes.
Not cutscenes. It's not cutscenes.
Cutscenes.
The first draft of Run-of-the-Mill Miracle included Samantha McKay falling from the apartment window and being injured on the ground below. In that draft of the story, her injury was actually Grady's fault because he left the apartment before he was supposed to.
What?
We thought that version might sound melodramatic, so we changed it to a carbon monoxide scare.
Jeez!
I know, I read that and I was like, I don't remember reading that before.
In the original version, we had Samantha falling to her death and her head cracking open because Grady pushed her out the window.
She was actually listening to a sermon from the apartment window, but then she fell asleep and fell out.
We thought that might be a little graphic for kids, just maybe. So then we thought maybe we should change it.
Yeah. Alright, final thoughts on this episode, Victoria?
I like this episode. It's simplistic in certain ways, but it comes together in the end and it really pays off and it's interesting to listen to. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
I really like the fact that, like, the progression of the miracles, because it's like a nice progression of Grady finding out what's possible and like pushing the limits closer to what he needs. Because first he's like, he's like, okay, so Jesus can do miracles. So he's like, can Jesus do miracles, from a distance? And we get a story from the New Testament. And he's like, can anyone else, help perform miracles? Well, can anyone else have God perform miracles through them, I should say. And then we get a story from the Old Testament. And he's like, do we still have miracles that happen today? And then we get a story from Joanne from present day. And it was neat that, one was a healing miracle, but we also got other kinds of miracles going on, too.
Mm-hmm. And then it got all wrapped up with a nice little bow, and we find out what happened.
Exactly. And it wasn't even, a healing miracle for Sam. It was like he was praying for Sam to be healed. And like Whit said, he got a miracle, but not the kind he was expecting. I mean, Sam did get better, but it was a miracle with the purse and the keys and stuff.
Sam's mom's name in Grady? I can't remember. Carson says it like a bunch of times. Don't look it up. That's cheating.
Oh, I'm not looking it up. What are you talking about?
Yes, you are. Stop looking it up. No, don't
play.
Don't play it.
I'm not.
Christy.
Yes.
Oh, I got it before you did.
There it is. Christy with a K.
That's like the exact opposite spelling of how it doesn't have a Y. It has an I.
Kristi. Granted, we don't know for certain, I don't think, how it's spelled. We might, but we probably don't.
I remembered it before you did.
You did.
I also remembered
I was like,
it
starts with a K sound. I was like, it's a K sound.
I was thinking, like, Carson says it a bunch of times in the episode where he first appears.
All right. So I really like the way that they structure the different types of miracles, because we get a variety, because we get a modern one and 2 imagination station ones. One from the New Testament, one from the Old Testament. It also follows this logical progression from Grady's perspective in terms of like testing the water in, how far can you go with this praying thing, to quote Grady. We also get, we get a sweet moment from Whit talking about Jenny and how her death, led to Whit's end and everything else that's happened on this show.
Can I just...
And it's nice that we get to see Grady's, his faith amount, like you said, big thing, which I never thought about, how he's reached like this autonomous point in his faith where it's not, they're not just, teaching about this stuff and telling him this stuff, but he's starting to question things on his own, to seek out information on his own.
Like,
to learn
I feel
more
like you
about
see that
this
the
faith
best
stuff
in this, like Father like Wooten, and even though it takes like a different turn in like Father like Wooten, he still spends a lot of the episode away from Wooten, and also
is he
in the
seeking
episode
out
with
faith stuff by himself in that?
Not completely, but he's at least thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
And then also like in the episode with his dad, he seeks out Wooten in the end of the episode by himself. So
it's a good like showing the progression as it's moving along from 43 to 49.
Can I just compliment this episode on something? We've complimented episodes on this before, but I always feel it needs to be acknowledged when an episode does this. I just want to compliment this episode for not being like a glass darkly in the ending. How Grady, I think
Sam dies, but it all worked out.
No, I'm talking about how
how there was a miracle, but then no one ever finds out about it?
Yeah, and in this one, it's like, there's a miracle, and Grady could have just been like, that's cool, but he's actually like, yeah, that's a miracle, and it's not like he hears about it, but he doesn't get it, or it's not like he doesn't even hear about it. Like, he hears about it, and he's just like, that is so cool, and a glass darkly, it drives me crazy. I hate that episode.
So... I'm gonna give this episode...
I give it 4.
Yeah, I know. Go 4.7 out of 5. Quite high. So that's that. What are we doing next time, Victoria? Finally,
we get to release our episodes that were recorded like half a year ago, finally.
Well, the first part was recorded like half a year ago.
Yeah, the second part wasn't,
But we are going to be talking about...
the new album.
59, not so new anymore, but...
It's not so new that 60's out now.
Yeah, sorry. Finally, this is coming out. But the good thing is, the 59 reviews, like, are, like we do our album reviews, they'll come out very close together. We'll have... First things first, I'm playing the predictable. And then we'll have Big Commitment and Dinner Roll Models. And then we'll have an OAC and regular review episode. And then we'll have Out of the Woods and Let's Get Together. So over the next 4 episodes, that'll cover all of album 59. So that should get out pretty condensed now. So you guys can finally hear our thoughts on it.
Get ready for your inboxes to be spammed.
And then we can finally start talking about predictions and excitement for album 60.
Ooh, Devin knows spoilers for it, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the only spoiler I know is what Wooten says, or what Penny says to Wooten.
I figured.
That's the only spoiler I know. But yeah, I mean, as soon as we finish reviewing, we can record our predictions episode.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And I'm still in shock about the Boaz thing. Oh my gosh, Devin! Devin!
And you've been watching
Oh my gosh!
The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Oh my gosh, Devin!
I know.